Okay, good evening. We're ready to get started. Learning tonight Daf Pei Hey Amud Beis, and as well in your Hashem Daf Pei Vav, all of Pei Vav, almost all of Pei Vav. We'll go about 2/3 of the way down till the Teku. And tonight we're going to be learning primarily two sugyas. We're going to be learning about the sugya, finishing up the sugya that we started about the agricultural aspects of Kiloi HaKerem, of planting multiple different types of kilayim, of programs, of plants that may lead to kilayim. However, when they're planted in a safe and proper way, so then there is seemingly less to be concerned about. And that's what we discussed in our Mishnah. And the Mishnah said that based on the Chacham and based on Psukim, that we're allowed to plant 5 different types of grains in a 6x6 tefach. So we're going to analyze more of those details. And then for the next section of the Gemara, starting in the top of Pei Vav, at the Mishnah, the middle, the top of Pei Vav, is a discussion about poletes shechva zera, about some status of tuma that women and at times men, as well as the Gemara will discuss, will have with zera based on Tash Mishamita. We'll discuss that as well as it relates to Kabbalah Satorah. This daf is apropos in timing, maybe a day late, as it were, quote unquote, in that it is all speaking about the Shloshes Yimei Hagbala, and it plays into a very important halachic component in the world of Hilchos Nida, one that everybody who is from holds, which is that after a woman begins her period, she has to wait not only X number of days, but that X number of days isn't only dependent on how much dam there is, it's also dependent on how many days from which she was last available to be with her husband based on Poleta Shechva Zera and discharging the Zera from Tash Meshamita. So we'll be discussing those two sugyas tonight. So let's start on the bottom of Pei Hey Amud Aleph, just 4 lines from the bottom. Amar Rav taught us a din aruga bechur bashaninu. In our Mishnah, when we said in our Mishnah that you can plant 5 different types of vegetation that would otherwise be Kiloi HaKerem, when we said that you're allowed to plant all 5 of them in a 6x6 tefach space, that was bechur bashaninu. That was in a field that is otherwise destroyed. There's nothing else going on in the field. There's just that one thing. That's it. Says the Gemara, wait a minute. Why, Rav, do you have to be so extreme? Why do you have to be so categorical? Maybe what you should do is change the case. You could have created the case where, as we initially assumed up until now, which is that it's still possible. We said that there would be a rim of 1 tefach around this square of 6x6, and then another aruga, another area of planting could exist. Why do you have to say that it was in a desolate field? So there, the Gemara says you could have put it in the corners, and then we could have figured it out. There's no reason to say it could have been. It had to be only in a desolate field. Amrei Bei Rab Mishmei de Rab, the base medrash of Rab said in the name of Rab. What we're talking about, we're creating a new kimta, that our Mishnah is discussing a case where the corners are totally filled. And because the corners are totally filled, so we therefore have it basically to be that it's impossible, seemingly that's the implication of the Gemara, that it's impossible to have a scenario where this field isn't desolate. It has to be desolate because if the corners are filled, you can't put other small arugos near this aruga that has the 5 different types of vegetation of growths. So that's what the Gemara says. Fine. It says the Gemara, "Velizra me'avroi, velo limle migavoy." You still could find another option. You don't have to fill up every last square inch of the 6 tvachim. You could plant some of it a little bit outside the lines and push out the next aruga away from it. So why still, Rav, pushing Rav again? Why are you trying so hard to make this a case, to make our Mishnah a case where it is the choreva, where it is totally in a place that's desolate? Turning to the top of Pei Hey Amud Aleph, answers the Gemara, Gzeira Shema Yamale Esakronos. You're right. We could come up with some theoretical possibilities as to how to lay it out, and it wouldn't be considered a field that's otherwise desolate. But we have a Gzeira Derabanan, that our Mishnah only applies b'choreva when it is necharav in a desolate field, out of concern that the farmer would be planting even in the corners. Says the Gemara, wait a minute. Below Yehei ela rosh tor yarak. We know, based on other Marimakomos, some of which we'll see, and if you look in Rashi to our left, you'll see a little triangle there, that there are other shapes which do exist in multiple forms. In other words, they exist not in a desolate field. Milo Tanan, do we not have a Mishnah 2 lines down? Haya rosh tor yarak nichnas letoch sadeh acher mutter. There we see by a triangular shape of a vegetable patch with multiple foods, 1 in each corner. So there we say that it's permissible if that were to extend into someone else's field, and it would not be Kiloi HaKerem, because there we see with clarity, we know where it ends. It's not a square, it peaks. So it has a peak. So so I see where it ends. It's very, very clear. So what do we see from the Gemara? We see that it's possible that you can have a field where there are multiple vegetable patches planted one next to the other. So again, pushing back on Rab. Why are you still saying that our Mishnah has to be in a case where the field is otherwise desolate with the exception of this 6x6 vegetable patch? You don't have to make that Aru Kimta. What's with this Gzeira that you're making on the top line of Shema Yamale Asakronos? It says the Gemara, Ein Rosh Tor Be'aruga. We don't hold to that. And Rashi goes through a lengthy diatribe here of Ein Rosh Tor Be'aruga. If you look at the beginning of Rashi, we'll just read the first line or two of Rashi at a half an inch below where we are. Ein Rosh Tor Be'aruga, Ein Toras Heter Rosh Tor Me'aruga Le'aruga. Ela Misada Gedola Letoch Aruga. It doesn't apply from one vegetable patch to another, only from a field to another neighbor's vegetable patch. That's only where it applies. So Rashi places some explanation here on the limitations of this line. Nevertheless, that's the Shita of Rav. Rav holds that our Mishnah is exclusively speaking about a 6x6 patch that is in a field that's otherwise desolate. Ushmuel Amar, Shmuel argues. No, Shmuel says not like Rav. Rav said it was desolate. Shmuel says, 5 lines down, Shmuel Amar Aruga Benhu Arugos Shaninu. No, we're talking about a place where there are multiple vegetable patches, no problem at all. Rav is not correct, and we don't have this Gzera Derabanan. So the etzem, to summarize the last 10 lines, is do we say that there is a Gzera that we may plant in the corners, thereby causing for problems of Kilaya Kerem, and that in short is a machlokas between Rav and Shmuel, with the impact being of what is our Mishnah talking about? Is our Mishnah talking about a case where it's many arugos, like Shmuel would say, or no, like Rav says that it's only one aruga, and in turn, everything else around it must by definition be desolate. So that's the machlokas between them. The Gemara now asks on Shmuel, you're saying that there are many arugos, hold on. Velkamis arve bahadade. They're going to enmesh. You're going to violate Kiloi HaKerem. How are you going to solve that problem? Answers the Gemara, Benota Shura Lakan V'Shura Lakan. You plant in a way, you're careful. You plant in a way where, remember we spoke yesterday about this idea that the Isra of Kiloi HaKerem, as we saw on the top of one of the previous Amudim, I think it was the top of, it's the top of Pehei Amud Aleph, where it says, Lo Yanke Me'adade, that we have to make sure that they're not getting nourished from the same sources. So therefore, we just have to make sure that they're separate enough. And what does that mean? So B'Kitzur, what that means is that they have to be 3 Tvachim apart. So they're bothered by that. And Shmuel answers, don't worry, Benota, Shur Mikan, B'Shur Mikan, we'll plant them carefully. Amar Ula says, Bo b'ma'arava, they asked a question in Eretz Yisrael. What was the question that they asked? Hivkia telem echad al pnei kulamahu. What if you dug a furrow in the midst of this 6x6? Would that be permissible? Would one then be allowed to? Is that a distinction that's enough of a distinction to say that this is not going to connect to the other ones? So there, the Gemara says, Amar of Sheshes, ba yirbu ubitel es ashur. It's too confusing, too easy to make a mistake. You can plant one seed in the middle, but you can't plant a whole furrow's worth. That we're just too concerned about that. But Rav Ashi, some versions of the Gemara have Rav Asi with a samech. So there, we'll see why it's important to make the correction of Rav Ashi. I'm learning from the Oz V'Hadar Gemara. The Oz V'Hadar Gemara writes Rav Ashi, but I looked in the regular Shas Vilna prior to the Oz V'Hadar world, and I'm sure those of you who are learning from it have it. It says Rav Asi with a samech, but we'll see shortly that doesn't make sense because the Gemara is going to ask on Rav Ashi, so it has to be Rav Ashi. So the Gersa has changed here. Rav Ashi Amar, no, that if you build that furrow in the middle, it's appropriate. Ain a ruvo, it should be like your buvia. Its mixture is ain a ruvo mavatel es ashura. No, that's fine. You're allowed to do that. We don't have a problem if you dig the furrow in the middle, again maintaining the 3 tefach distance, but the furrow is not a problem. Says the Gemara, Eisive Ravina le Rav Ashi. Now this is how we know it had to be Rav Ashi and not Rav Asi. So Ravina asks a question to Rav Ashi just for timing purposes. If you think about the age bracket, we're now talking about the final generation of the Amoraim before the canonization of the Gemara in the previous form, right before the version of what we know. Historically speaking, the Gemara initially was written in the following stages. It was all the Torah Satanaim. After that, we had all the statements of Amoraim. Even though we notoriously say that Gemara is written in Aramaic, technically speaking, the Mishnayos and the statements of the Amoraim, when they're written in halachic form, are almost always and exclusively in Hebrew. It's very rare for an Amora to write in Aramaic. Very rare. It was usually written in Hebrew. However, the Savoraim came along after the times of the Amoraim, and they wove in all of the Shaklavataria as we know it, the back and forth the ebbing and flowing of the da, all that's historically relatively new compared to the Gemara itself. So the Amoraim period finished around 500 or so. And then around 700, maybe 800, the Savoraim came along and they made the Gemara into the weave that we know of. In fact, I have somewhere in my bookshelves here, I have a copy of a Gemara from prior to that point where the language that you'll find in our Gemara, like Vitzricha or Mahu Detema or Im Tim Salomar, or all of these different constructs that we have, none of them are Amoraic. They're all Savoraic. They're later in timing. So this conversation, Esive Ravina, the Ravashi, this is all the way at the end of the process of editing of the Mishnayos and the Torah's HaAmoraim, very, very late in the game. So what was the question that they asked against Ravashi? What did Ravashi just say? We asked about the one line of furrow. We asked about the furrow that's built in the middle. It's in the middle of this 6x6. So there, Ravashi said that it's not a problem, but that doesn't work because look at what this says. We have an Asive. It's quoted from a Mishnah in Kilaim. Hanotea shtei shuros shel kishuin. 2 rows of gourds. Shtei shuros shel diluin. Another 2 rows of another vegetable. Shtei shuros shel pula mitri. Another vegetable. These beans. All of those are mutter, no problem at all. If again, they're built in pairs because they're 2 of the same, and then 2 more of the same, and then 2 more of the same. However, adds the Mishnah there in Kilaim, shura achas shel kishun. If you have only 1 row of kishun, shura achas shel diluin. It's not in pairs; it's individual. So 1, 1, and then 1. Shura achas shel pul mitzri aser. We see that it's aser. So we see that when there's only 1 row, we see that it's problematic. So Ravashi, 3 lines ago, you said that it was mutter to have 1 row, one row running up the middle of the vegetable patch. That should be totally permissible. Why would that be? Why are you saying that? Why are you saying it's permissible? Excuse me. When this Mishnah in Kilaim is saying that it's aser. Answers the Gemara, shiny hacha. Really, Ravashi is right, but this Mishnah is talking about a different case. This Mishnah is talking about foods that happen to be the ika siracha. They're very viney, they're very leafy. So there's overgrowth here. And the growths that come out of these vegetables can overlap and violate the Isser of Kilaim. Continuing in a similar vein as where we started yesterday about trying to find a way to get as much types of vegetation, as many types of vegetation as possible in a small area, the Gemara says as follows, 2/3 of the way down, Pehei Amud Beis. Amar Rav Kahana, Rav Yochanan, Harotzel Malos Kol Ginasto Yarak. If you want to be able to fill up your entire garden with vegetables, Ose Aruga Shisha Al Shisha, you should make a 6x6 patch. The Ogel Ba, and you should make a circle inside of it. Chamisha, make it 5. That means if you have a box, if you have a square, and the width and of course the height of the square is 6 tfachim, and you inscribe a circle inside of 5, that means that outside of the peak of the circle, there's going to be a half of a tefach on each side, and of course the corners will be larger. So that's what you're doing, is that you're inscribing a circle inside of a square, but it's a little bit smaller. Umemale karnoseha kol ma sheyirtze. The corners which are larger, all 4 corners, you can plant whatever you want in all 4 corners, that's fine. Okay, good. And then, of course, you can fill something into the middle, put 1 seed into the middle, like our Mishnah said, very similar to our Mishnah, just adding in here the circle. We'll see shortly that was for very intentional purposes by Rav Kahana. It says the Gemara, V'ha'ika de beini. Hold on 1 second. We're afraid that things are going to overlap. What about this aruga and the aruga to the left or to the top or to the right or to the bottom? There's other arugos in the patch, certainly within the world of Shmuel. So how do you avoid kiloi hakerem, especially if you're using your corners? Remember, just look at the very top of this page. Rav's concern was Gzera Shema Yamale Asakronos. So that's a perfectly valid question the Gemara is asking here, is that Rav Kahana, Rav Kahana said in the name of Rav Yochanan that you're allowed to fill the corners out with vegetation. But that was exactly what Rav was concerned about. So how can he do that? We'll have to discuss that shortly. But here we're trying to figure out just logistics. What's going to happen with the arugos that are next to it? You're going to violate kiloi hakerem. Says the Gemara, Amre de Rav Yanai b'machari bein habeni. It's where you have an appropriate gap between each of the arugos, and therefore we don't have to worry about kiloi hakerem. Ravashi Amar, Ravashi gives a different answer. Ravashi says, how do we avoid the problems? Ravashi Amar, Imhayu Zeru'in Shesi Zoran Arev Zoran Shesi. So let's say that we have 3 arugos. We have 1 here, 1 in the middle, and one to the side. So if the one in the middle is run top to bottom, then the ones on the sides are going to be run right to left. And that way, when the arugos are next to each other, it's extremely clear that they are not the same exact growth, because you're building those in one aruga right to left and the others top to bottom. So when you look visually at that, when you see you're driving down the highway, you see these rows of corn, and sometimes they run into the depth of the field, and sometimes they run with you. So that's how Rav Ashi tries to make such a distinction, to say that the concern of the Shita of Rav Kahana in the name of Rav Yochanan is not a concern. Whatever is growing in one box, then the box next to it, the aruga next to it, you'll grow the vegetation in another direction so that it's crystal clear that they are not growing the same vegetation. So I'll just read it inside. Rav Ashi Amar Im Hayu Zeroin Shasi Zoran Arev. If in one box you're planting in one direction and the other plant in another. Arev, you're planting in another direction. Zoran Shesi, then in the next box you'll plant in the other direction. Very good. Esive Ravina the Rav Ashi. Ravina asks a question to Rav Ashi. Avodas Yerek biyerek acher shisha tfachim. When one is working on an aruga, you need it needs to be 6 tfachim. The rowan osam, and we look at them kitabla merubas, and we look at this this patch as 6 by 6 squares, 6 square tfachim. But then the Gemara on the top of Pei Vav Amud Aleph on the top line makes a diuk. Hold on one second. Kitavla hu deshari. When is it that we say that an aruga is done properly? That's when it's in a square shape. However, halav hachi aser. But if in fact it is not going to be in that shape, then it's aser. So how then can Rav Kahana recommend that you put a circle inside a square and build in a circle shape? It doesn't work. We have a shita here. We have an inference from this ACV. Where is this Mari Mokum? It's a Tosefta here in Perek Beis of Kilayim. So there, it doesn't make any sense that we should be able to have something that's a circle shape. It should all be squares. Answers the Gemara, no. The only reason why Rav Kahana in the name of Rav Yochanan wrote about a circle inside a square, Hasam la'akule bakula acharina. That was to teach me something else. What was it coming to teach me? Lahatir Rosh Tor Hayotze Hemena. That if this particular aruga had a shape to it, a unique shape, and it protruded into another field, so then that would not be problematic, as we saw on the Gemara on the top when we were questioning the Shita of Rab. When Rab learned our Mishnah that it was only Becharava, only that it was a 6 by 6 patch in desolation. So then the Gemara there tried to argue about the vegetation, and Rashi there highlighted what type of vegetation was allowed, and this would be that, where a field goes into an aruga, that would be permissible. So the din of Rav Kahana in the name of Rav Yochanan that we just learned on the bottom of the previous Amud, 2/3 of the way down, is coming to teach us why was it mentioned specifically with a circle. If the Tosefta and Kalim says you're not allowed to measure with a circle, you can only measure with a square. Answers the Gemara was to teach us a side din that you're allowed to have a different shape to this particular aruga that will then lead into a field that will not be the Yisr of Kiloy Hakar. All right, the agriculture is done for now, and now we're going to get into the world of Kabbalah Satorah, as we will shortly see. We know famously that there were the Shloshes Yemei Hagbala, the 3 days that were prior to the Kabbalah Satorah, where Moshe Rabbeinu told the Yidden that they were not allowed to be with their wives in order to make sure that they would be tahora, that they would be able to to receive the Torah b'tahara. So everybody went to the mikvah. When did they go to the mikvah? We'll see today in the Gemara when that was. A little bit of a discussion. But the concern of Sheikh Vazer Levatal is that after Tash Mishamita, after intimacy, that for the days that follow, for potentially 3 days, maybe longer, as we'll see in the different shitas in the Tanaim, and we'll speak about halacha l'maisa as well. So some of the Meforshim point out, the Gemara here fundamentally says that a woman who has a discharge of zera post-intercourse for 3 days, so she will have a certain status of tuma. And because of that, Moshe Rabbeinu wanted to make sure that everyone had the opportunity to go to the mikvah prior to Kabbalah Satorah, to stand b'ta'ara at the foot of the mountain to receive the Torah at Har Sinai. So that's all based on this Mishnah. The Mishnah Pei Vav Amud Aleph, 4 lines down. Minayin lepoletes shechva zera b'yom hashlishi shetehei tmeya. How do we know that a woman who discharges shechva zera, who discharges semen b'yom hashlishi on the 3rd day post intercourse shetehei tmeya, shenemar hayu nechonim l'shloshes yamim, you should be ready for 3 days. Tosfos is a little bit bothered by this. Take a look at the top Tosfos. Minayin lepoletes shechva zera says hayu nechonim l'shloshes yamim afal pi shebe'osa shah adayin lo nitna Torah. we're being so makbid on a woman about poleta shechva zera. We mamish don't even have the psukim in Vayikra yet. Why are we making sure that women are receiving the Torah b'kedusha v'tara? Does it say that she can't be a nida? Does it say that she can't be a zava? Why are we so concerned about poleta shechva zera? All right, so that's what Tosfos is bothered by. So Tosfos says, "Afal pisha be'osa shah dain lo nitna Torah mikol makom nistama hikpida Torah al davar she'asi litios tuma achar matan Torah." So we were concerned about the fact that this would then, at some point, soon, tomorrow, we're getting the Sefer Torah, we're getting the Torah on Shabbos by Har Sinai. So then on Sunday morning, if a woman is mishamish mitasa, she has tash mishamita with her husband, and then she's poleta shechva zera, then she could be tmeya yet again. So that's why the Gemara wanted to discuss this idea. And then the end of Tosfos just skimming to the end. Why is it only by Balkari? Why wasn't it by all other forms of nida, by all other forms of tuma? So there, the end of Tosfos writes Pirush the Balkari. Eino be'ema uviyira demachmas kalus roshuba. That even though it's true that there is a mitzvah of ona, and the mitzvah of ona is a halachic burden on a husband to be available physically for his wife, afal pikein, there's still an aspect of kalus rosh. It doesn't have aim of a yira, nor should it. No one's saying that it should, but it has a different tashkafa to it, has a different mindset. And because it has a different mindset, and because that there's an aspect of kalus rosh, so one therefore has to make sure that this din is going to be kept even prior to Matan Torah. And that's why our Mishnah, even though it's prior to Har Sinai, even though it's prior to receiving the Torah, we had to make sure that that there was going to be no one who was going to be tmeya because of poleta shechva zera. The Mishnah continues, from where do we know that on the third day after a bris, we know famously Yom Shlishi Kasha Lamila, that on that day, Marchitzin Esamila, that one can wash the bris on day 3, even with hot water. You can even be Mechal Shabbos under these circumstances. The science at the time assumed that there was a Pikuach Nefesh component to bris milah b'Yom Shlishi, and people would violate Shabbos. By the way, if you'll notice, for the last many blots since we entered Perak Amar Rabbi Akiva, we haven't spoken about Shabbos yet. The agricultural stuff has only to do with Kilaya Keren. Before that, we were talking about whether or not a ship had the status of Tuma. Before that, we were talking about Tuma V'tara by a mace, by a Avodah Zarah. So totally unrelated. So some of the Meforshim point out that this whole parak is because of this one line, that the Mishnah speaks about this din of Shabbos, that b'yom hashlishi shechal yos b'Shabbos. How do we know that we can wash the makom hamila shenemar b'yom hashlishi b'yosam koavim, that when they were in pain, Shimon and Levi, by Shechem, they were in a lot of pain. So we know that that day was very painful, that there must be a danger to them. Continues the Mishnah. How do we know that when it comes to the Yom Kippur service that we tie this red ribbon around the horn of the Seir Mishtaleach? How do we know that we make an equation, a similarity, an equivalence between anointing on Yom Kippur and eating and drinking on Yom Kippur? Answers the Mishnah, even though there isn't a direct connection, there is still somewhat of a connection. It's just not a perfect response. Okay, that's the equivalence to be made. To be clear, on Yom Kippur, there is no Isser Kares on Yom Kippur for Sicha, only for Achila Ushasiya and for Malacha. But by this there isn't any. So that's just an important ha'ara to make. But we're gonna navigate all of these. Let's get started. 1/3 of the way down, Pevav Amud Aleph, by the opening of the Gemara by the large Gimel Mem. Reisha, the first din of our Mishnah, Poleta Shechva Zera, which says that a person is tamei on day 3, even on the 3rd day. So if they're Mishamish Mitaso on a Sunday, then the capacity for the Zera, according to the Mishnah, is Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. And all 3 of those days, she is at risk from becoming Tmeya, from discharging Zera. So says the Gemara, Reisha de Lok Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah. That's not like the Shita of Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah. And we will see shortly what his Shita is, but he did not hold that she was Tmeya for 3 days. Seifa, the second din, which is we're not gonna spend much time on today. Seifa, Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah, that is like his Shita. The Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah, if you want to say that the first din of this Mishnah about Poleta Shechva Zera is like the opinion of Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah, but he held differently. Tahora Shamanale. He held that on that 3rd day she was Tahora, namely, he held that the tuma for poleta shechva zera, if there was tashmish shamita on Sunday, that she was only at risk for poleta shechva zera for Monday and Tuesday. Masha'in Kain, our Tana held that it was even on the third day, even on Wednesday. So that's his shita. And then the Gemara does something very, very, very unique. This is very uncommon in Shas. The Gemara says, it's kind of like, choose your own adventure. So the Gemara says, Mandelo muki ketanoi. If you're not in the mood to set this up as a machlokes tanaim, fine. How will we explain this? Tana reisha tahora umuki la lakula. Umuki la lakula kribelazar ben Azariah. If you don't want to say there's a machlokes, then let's change the Mishnah to say tahora. Look back at the first line of the Mishnah. Minayin lepoleta shechva zera b'yom hashlishi shehi tahora. That's what we would have said. So then, fine, that works out everything. Umukila, then the whole Mishnah is Kribelazar ben Azariah. Umad mukim kitanoi. And if you want to say that in fact this is a machlokes tanaim, if you want to say that there's a machlokes, so then there's a machlokes tanakama and Rebelazar ben Azariah. Reisha Rabbanon, the beginning of the Mishnah, the first statement of the Mishnah is that of the Rabbanon, because Rebelazar ben Azariah doesn't agree with that. Rebelazar ben Azariah only says there's 2 days of Tumah by Poleta Shechva Zera. Masha'in came, the Tana of our Mishnah says that there's 3. So maybe if we're going to say that there is a machlokes, then we'll say that the first phrase, the first comment of the Mishnah by Poleta Shechva Zera is the Rabbanon. However, the Seifa, the second din, and really the rest of the Mishnah is Rebelazar ben Azariah. Find 2 different ways to answer the Gemara. Why is the Gemara doing this? They're just different methodologies to answer questions, but we usually don't get to see the underbelly of how the Gemara decides what type of answer to give. Normally, we're just subject to whatever the answer is. This is just a very interesting display of some of the inner thinking of what the Chachamim do when they decide to answer. Do we want to say there's a machlokes here, or do we not? Sometimes yes, sometimes no. The Gemara is usually unhesitating about machlokos. Maybe the Gemara was unclear and therefore presented 2 options to the reader. Very, very uncommon presentation in the Gemara. Just about halfway down, Tanu Rabbanon. This Tanu Rabbanon is very important. It is the core, in part, of some of our day-to-day shmira of Hilchos Nida. In fact, we know that, of course, if a woman becomes a Nida, then Mida Oraisa, a woman has to wait a total of 7 days, even if she bled all 7 of those days. If on that 7th day she was able to get a Badika at the end of the day, she could go to the mikveh that night, Mida Oraisa, she could. But we don't do that. And the reason we don't do that is because of the Tosefta that we are about to learn. Instead, what we do is we wait 5 days. That's the trend that we do in Klal Yisrael, though it is subject to a huge machlokes Tanaim and a huge machlokes Rishonim as well. Many hundreds of years later, almost 1,000, more than 1,000 years later, 1,300 years later, between the Shulchan Aruch and the Ramah. The Shulchan Aruch held like one shita that we're going to see today, and the Ramah held more strictly. And then we add the Chumrah of the Trumas HaDeshen, and voila, we have a minimum of 12 days all of a sudden before a woman can go to the mikveh. 7 days of nida, 4 days potentially of, as we'll see, 4 days potentially of Poleta Shechva Zera, plus a 5th day of a Chumrah of the Trumas HaDeshen, that maybe when they attached B'Shamita, it was during Bein HaShmashos. And we don't know if the Bein HaShmashos was yesterday or the next day. So because of that, we end up waiting 7 days of Nida, 5 days of waiting of Nobla, just a total of 5 days from the beginning of Nida before she can do a Hefsek Tara. Sorry, that was unclear, actually just inaccurate. Let me just rephrase. From the day that a woman gets her period, she has to wait a minimum of 5 days before she can do a Hefsek Tahara, before she can check to ensure that she's allowed to go to the mikvah. That was the point to be made, just a little unclear, I apologize. So let's see this Tosefta, very, very important for halachic study of Hilchos Nida. Tana Rabbanan, Poleta Shechva Zera b'yom hashlishi tahora, divi Rebelazar ben Azariah, like we saw. If a woman were to have a discharge of Zera on the 3rd day, days 1 and 2, he agrees, like the Tanakam of our Mishnah, that if she's Poleta Shechva Zera, day 1 and 2 after Tashmish Amita, so then the halacha is that she is Tmeya. However, on day 3, so there the Zera is not viable anymore. And because the Zera is not viable for pregnancy, so therefore Rebelazar ben Azariah held that she would be Tahora if she saw a discharge on that day. Rabbi Shmuel Omer, Pa'amim shehin Dalet Onos, Pa'amim shehin Hey Onos, Pa'amim shehin Vav Onos. It really depends. Sometimes it could be as short as 4 Onos, and Ona is a half of a day, so 4 Onos is only 2 days. And sometimes it could be as long as as 6 onos. What is this dependent on? It's dependent on when the couple was mishamish mitasa. If they had tashmish mita right at the beginning of a new tkufa, so then they have to add in more time frames to get to that minimum amount of time. But they look at the raw number of days. If there was tashmish on, let's say, a minute before Shkia on Monday, so that counts as Monday, and then they have 2 onos of Tuesday, 2 onos of Wednesday, and then she's tahora yet again. So this is his opinion, is that it's kind of looking at every day with the mindset of mixas hayom kikulo. So that's shita number 2. That's Rabbi Shmuel. Rabbi Akiva Omer, very unique shita. Leolam hey. He says that it's really 5 onos. So it's 5 onos of 12 hours. In other words, it's 60 hours on exact halachic hours that he holds that that we would treat zera as a discharge from a woman post tashmish amita. That's how long we would treat that zera to be subject to poleta shechvazer, that it could be metame her. So he says laolam hey b'im yatzasa mixas ona rishona, and if it was a couple of hours into the first ona, nostan la mixas ona shishis, then we push it off into the 6th. But it's always going to be 60 hours according to Rabbi Akiva. And now the Gemara is going to go into some analytics here. 2/3 of the way down, Amruha Rabbanon, the rabbis taught these shitas, Kame de Rav Papa. They taught the shita of Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah, of Rabbi Shmuel, and Rabbi Akiva. They taught the shita of 2 days. They taught the shita of Rabbi Shmuel that it kind of depends, like mixas hayom kikulo, and they taught the shita of Rabbi Akiva that it's always 5 onos. Amruha Rabbanon Kame de Rav Papa, v'amri la Rav Papa l'Rava, and Rav Papa was bothered. Bishlama Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah, I understand the Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah who holds that there's only 2 days of poleta shechva zera. So then got it. I understand why Kirabanan Da'amri Behei Abud Prisha, why it was, according to the Shita that holds this way, that Moshe Rabbeinu only asked the Jews by Har Sinai to be porish from their wives on Thursday. Why? The Torah was received on Shabbos, so they should be porish on Thursday, and they should be porish on Friday. Then you don't have to worry about poleta shechva zera, no problem at all, and you're good to go. That worked out perfectly. So we understand how the Shita of Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah fits with when Moshe Rabbeinu asked the Jews to be porish. Rabbi Shmuel Rabbi Yossi, we also understand that Rabbi Shmuel, who basically held 2 days, was similar to Rabbi Yossi, Damar B'Dalid, Avud Prisha, that on Wednesday he was Avud Prisha the day earlier because Rabbi Shmuel had a range. Remember, on the earliest range it was 4 onos, and on the higher range it was 6 onos, so fine. We could understand how that works as well. However, the shita we don't understand is Rabbi Akiva, because Rabbi Akiva doesn't match up with a number of days, because he says that it's 6 onos. He says that it's 5 onos, and 5 onos is 60 hours. And 60 hours is not an amount of a day. That doesn't really work out. So how does all of this work? It says the Gemara as follows. Ela Rabbi Akiva, Keman. Who does he hold like? He doesn't hold like Thursday. That's when Moshe asked them to stop being together. It doesn't work by Wednesday. It had to be some point in the middle. So how does Rabbi Akiva make it work? So answers the Gemara, Le'olam, really, Rabbi Akiva is in the camp of Rabbi Yossi. Uchide Amar Reb Ada bar Ahava. Moshe behashkama Allah, uvehashkama yorad. Behashkama Allah, when Moshe went up to Har Sinai, Dichsi vayashke Moshe baboker, he went up to Har Sinai in the morning. Vayal el Har Sinai, and also behashkama yorad, he also came down from Har Sinai behashkama in the morning. Dichsiv lech reid ve'alisa atav aroni mach makish yirida le'aliyah. And even though that second pasuk, when he's coming down, doesn't say what time he came down, Rabbi bar Ava points out that there's a hekesh. What's the hekesh? Makish yirida le'aliyah. Ma'aliyah be'ashkama. If you read the be'ashkama. So therefore, how do we get it to be the Rabbi Akiva only has 5 onos, exactly 60 hours? Because Moshe Rabbeinu told them in the morning of a particular day, not the night before, but in the morning of a particular day, that's when they had to be porish from their spouses. So that led to 2 full days. So then it would be all day Friday, meaning starting Friday, Thursday night would be day 1, go back another day, Wednesday night. So what happened on Wednesday morning, which was the first of what would be 60 hours before Shabbos, that is when, according to Rabbi Akiva, within the camp of Rabbi Yossi, that's how Rava answered Rav Papa to say that Rabbi Akiva's shita works perfectly. That Moshe Rabbeinu told the Jews on Wednesday morning, good morning, no tashmish amita during the day today. So says the Gemara, I don't understand. Lama le lememra lahu. Why did he have to teach this to them? This is a mefurish adin. V'ha amar Rav Huna Yisrael kedoshim heim ve'ein mishamshim mitosein b'yom. That a couple should not be together during the day. So that's a big problem. Why would Moshe Rabbeinu, according to Rabbi Akiva's shita of 5 onos, why then would he have to say that on a Wednesday morning, Rabbosai, al tikshu al ha'isha? No one should be close to their wives now. Why? It's usher. So answers the Gemara, and this is halacha l'maisa. Ha'amar Rava im haya beis afel mutter, v'amar Rava v'itema Rav Papa talmid chacham ma'apil b'talisa umutter. So we have scenarios whereby it is permissible for a couple to be intimate during daylight hours. Typically, we don't. The Meforshim here point out, I believe Rashi does on the spot. Let me just find the Rashi. Yeah. So Rashi, the second from the last lines of Rashi, writes the Ka'amar Rav Huna, Jeim Mishamshin B'yom D'chsiv Bozad Rachav Yamus, Debayit Niyusa Shelo Yistaklu, because we have a limitation to being Mistakil B'osa Makom B'makom HaToref, that it is not deemed appropriate for one to glance at the Makom HaToref, and therefore we try not to be Mishamish Mitasam by day. In our culture of technology, so a couple should be with lights off. That's what's considered appropriate halacha. But there are circumstances where a couple is allowed to be together during the day, and under those circumstances, they have to be more careful about not being mistakil ba'osa makom to make sure that they're not looking in a way that would be otherwise halachically problematic. So that's how the Gemara answers the question. Why did Moshe Rabbeinu have to tell them, according to Rabbi Akiva, why did Moshe Rabbeinu have to tell them on a Wednesday morning? Because the answer is that there are circumstances when it's permissible for a couple to be together. Very good. Turning to the top of Pevavim and Beis, the last Amud for tonight, and again, we're going to be stopping at the Teku about 2/3 of the way down. Says the Gemara, okay, so basically what happened is that they were potentially Poleta Shech Vazer for either Wednesday, but everyone agrees Thursday and Friday. Then they went to the mikvah Friday night. But the problem is that when it comes to Shechva Zera, we have a side din, which is that how long are you tameh for? It's not like Nida, that when a person comes out of a mikvah, when a woman comes out of a mikvah, she's tahora and is immediately tahora in full. But by Shechva Zera, it's different. All of these people were tefula yom. In other words, if they went to the mikvah on Friday, because of Poleta Shechva Zera on Friday night, they'd have to wait until Tzeis HaKochavim of the next day to become fully tahor. They don't need to do a maisa anymore. They just have to wait out the time. So then how was the Torah given that way? The Torah was given with everyone as a tefula yom. It's kind of like in this unique quasi state of, it's very weird. Like why we got the Torah's tefula yom? Says the Gemara, Abaye bar Ravin, the Rav Chanina bar Avin, the Amre Tarbayu, Nitna Torah Latfula Yom. Wow, it is correct. The Torah was given in this potential state of continued tuma by Shechva Zera. A woman was Poleta Shechva Zera. She went to the mikvah, and during the day, the waiting day, during that one day when she's just waiting, she just needs Seisa Kochavim Saturday afternoon, but they got the Torah on Shabbos morning. So then it answers the Gemara, yeah, that's taka true, that that all of these women who were Poleta Shechva Zera were able to receive the Torah on Shabbos morning. That's absolutely correct. So it says the Gemara as follows. Yossi Meremar v'ka'amar la laha shmaisa. Meremar was sitting and teaching this Torah. Amar le Ravina le Meremar. Nitna ka'amras or ru'uya ka'amras. Are you saying, in fact, that there were women who were, in fact, Poleta Shechva Zera? Or are you just saying that halachically it would be ru'uya, that it's allowed? So the answer is the Gemara, Amar le ru'uya. I'm just saying that it's allowed. But in fact, these women, according to some Meforshim, went to the mikvah still earlier. They were even more makbid than they needed to be to make sure that they were makabel the Torah with perfect tahara, not even being tevula yom. So that's how the Gemara answers this question. I belitbelu bene shimshei, belikbelu Torah bene shimshei. Why not have the women go to the mikvah on Ben Hashmashos Friday evening? Really, it just says, it doesn't mean Ben Hashmashos, the Meforshim. It means just have them go at night and then get the Torah at night. In other words, why did we wait until the morning of Shabbos to get the Torah? So answers the Gemara, Amar Rav Yitzchak, Lo me rosh b'seiser dibarti. I'm not giving the Torah in hiding. I'm giving the Torah with public fanfare. Kolosu vrakim. Everyone's going to know about Kabbalah Torah. Everyone. This is the famous argument of the Kuzari, that the Melech Kezar was having these dreams, and he went to Rabbi Yehuda Halevi, and he said, "Prove to me that the Torah is authentic." And this was the raya. The Torah was not given in private. You go find out about the early Christians, God spoke to Yeshu. You go find out about in the 600s, you want to find out about Muslims, God spoke to Muhammad privately. There's only one religion ever in the history of the world that has its presentation b'lifnei am va'eda like the Jewish people had, and it is this. It is our Masorah that we had a public presentation. So the Gemara says, why not give the Torah Saturday night? Hashem says, no, I don't want to have any tainas. I want everyone to know that the Torah was given during daytime, during sunlight hours. It wasn't in some back alley. There were millions of people there, according to the most basic of estimations, that there were 600,000 men between the ages of 20 and 60, and that doesn't even factor in kids. Let's assume they were married. There were millions and millions and millions of people there. Millions. And Hashem said, we cannot do this on a Friday night. Lo me rosh b'seiser dibar. It has to be public. Okay, fine. But if that's the case, why'd they go to the mikvah Friday night? If they're not going to be getting the Torah till morning, they can go to the mikvah by Vasikin. V'litbelu b'tzafra d'shabsa, v'litbelu Torah b'tzafra d'shabsa. Go to the mikvah when you wake up in the morning, and then right after that, you'll get the Torah. Why do we have to go to the mikvah specifically on Friday night? Answers the Gemara. Amar Rav Yitzchak shelo yehei halalu holchen lekabel Torah v'halalu holchen letfilah. It's going to be a whole balagan. You got some people running to the mikvah. People are running out of the mikvah. Their beards dripping. They got to go get. No, it's not masudar. You got to make it good. Everyone go to the mikvah Friday night. Everybody, you're done. You're all tahor. Wake up in the morning if you can even sleep the night before you get the Torah. Wake up in the morning, and then you'll go be makabel Torah Shabbos morning. Perfect. So the Gemara returns to our discussion about the shitas that we spoke about on the previous page. Amar Rabbi Chia bar Abba, Amar Rabbi Yochanan, Zo direi Rabbi Shmuel v'Rabbi Akiva. Aval Chachamim, there's still a fourth shita. We learned about Rabbi Lazar ben Azariah. We learned about Rabbi Shmuel. We learned about Rabbi Akiva. Now here's the fourth shita. The fourth shita is Aval Chachamim Omrim Sheish Onos Shlemos Ba'inan. That we need 6 full onos. Namely, we need 3 full days. A couple is Mishamish Mitasam on Sunday before Shkia, whatever the case may be. That means all day Sunday, all day Monday, and all day Tuesday. All day Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. If she's Poleta Shechva Zera, she'll be Tmeya. That is what is the din that's quoted in Shulchan Aruch of 6 onos. And then we add yet another day out of concern for the Trumas HaDeshen. So that means it takes a full 4 days have to pass, and meaning we have to get to the 5th day in order for a woman to be able to do a Hefsek Tara. Amar Rav Chizda, Machlokes, when is it that these Tanoim have the Machlokes Bichlal? Shapir Shemin Ha'isha. That's what all we've been talking about right now is women and the Poleta Shechva Zera after Tash Mishamita. However, Aval Pir Shemin Ha'ish Tmeya Kozman Shehi Lacha. However, by men, we presume that Zera is Tameh for as long as it is not dry. As long as there's moisture to it, it has the status of Tumah. It says the Gemara that doesn't really work. Masiv Rav Sheshes, the pasuk says, "V'chol beged v'chol or asher yihya alav shechva zera prat l'shechva zera shisrucha." When is shechva zera no longer in the status of tummy? When it's srucha, when it's disgusting, but not that may still be when it's moist. So we have a contradiction. How can you have it be that the shita that we just learned in the name of Rav Chizda is that it's only when it's lacha, that zera is only tummy when it's moist? Maybe it loses its status right when it's srucha. My love, Shapir Shamin Ha'ish. Isn't this a contradiction? Because this statement that we have in the Tosefta, in the Torah Satanoim, indicates that it's talking about men. Answers the Gemara, no, Lo Shapir Shamin Ha'isha, we're talking about women as well. And there too, that is the Machlokas. What does Srucha mean? Does it mean 3 days? Does it mean 2 days? 5 onos? A range of onos from 4 to 6, like Rabbi Shmuel said, a whole bunch of sheep. Boy, Rav Papa. Rav Papa asks, this whole concept about Poleta Shechva Zera, we know that it applies, of course, by Jewish women. What happens if Rahmana Litzlan, a person was intimate with a woman who is not Jewish? Would it be different? Let's say that a non-Jew, that a Jewish man was Meshamish Mitaso with a non-Jewish woman, Rahmana Litzlan, Mahu, what would be the din of the Zera? Would it be the same exact din of Poleta Shechva Zera by that woman as it would be by a Jewish woman? First of all, who cares? She's a goy. Well, what's the difference? She has no status of Tuma. A goy doesn't have a status of Tuma Poleta Shechva Zera. So there, the Meforshim point out that in case that someone came in contact with the Zera, would it still be considered viable? That's what this sugya is really about. Mahu. Do we say, this is a crazy concept, Yisrael, a Jewish woman, who's constantly Yarei Shamayim, she's constantly thinking about mitzvos. So when she is with her husband, a Jewish woman, so then we say her body is warmer. That's what the assumption of the Gemara. Chavil gufayhu, her body's warmer. However, akum jeloda igibim mitzvos lo. Maybe her body is not quite as warm, and maybe the point at which the zera becomes no longer viable is a different point earlier potentially. Okay, that's one assumption. Oh, Dilma, or would we say no? Maybe because the goy kevan de achlin shkatzim or masim, because non-Jewish women eat these tray foods, and apparently these foods were also chavil gufayu, it would impact their body temperature. So maybe we would have said no. And also, even Tim Salomar, even if you want to say that the goy is the same body temperature in that kevan de achlin shkatzim or masim chavil gufayu, that both a Jewish woman and a non-Jewish woman who are intimate with a Jewish man, that the zera has the same status. Nothing changes. But still, what about another issur that we know about in the Torah? A serious line crosser, b'me'ei behema. Let's say that someone violates the issur of being shochev in behema, and the zera is inside a behema. Mahu. Do we say isha the isla prosdor masreches of a behema de lesla prosdor lo? Do we say that because a woman has a canal in which the zera is carried, so therefore it's misrachas, therefore it will become tame faster? Aval behema de lesla prosdor lo. They don't have a canal that carries zera. No, odil maloshna. Or maybe there's no difference at all. And there, to that, the Gemara answers teku. The Gemara answers that we do not know the answer to this question. We will stop here tonight, Emir Tashem, and pick up tomorrow night with only one blot, Daf Pei Zayin. A lot of very well-known Gemaras coming up, Kaf Aleim Har Kigigis, that a Karesh Baruch Hu held a mountain over our heads, and other very well-known Gemaras coming up over the next couple of blot. Emir Tashem, and looking forward to learning with you tomorrow night. Have a great night.